Hello, hello. What's going on, my friends? How we doing today? How are we? How are you? You all okay? How are you feeling today? A day later, a day removed from the disaster that was yesterday. I guess we're like 23 hours removed from yesterday's calamitous game. How are we feeling now? I'm going to put a poll up so as everybody comes in, because I'm actually quite curious on the mood. I was surprised when I put a video out this morning. I was surprised to see as many positive responses. That little video I put with an update on Amorim, I was surprised to see as many positive responses as I got to that. So I'm curious now. Here's my poll for you guys. I'm curious to see the measure of where people are at. Because frankly, I don't know. Yeah, we'll talk about Garnacho in a minute. The fact that people are making a fucking fuss about that is shameful to me. It's shameful to me. I'm so, one of the things I'm so tired of that I really did get upset with yesterday, and that really does bother me, is I've said this before, but the current fan landscape is terrible. It's so bad. We've spent years talking about player FC, and we've spent years talking about player power. We've spent years talking about needing to get rid of bad attitudes, of players who aren't committed, of players who aren't in, of players who aren't doing everything. We spent years on this, and yet people will celebrate our failure, who are supposedly United fans, because it seems to be something they want, because it'll give them some sort of like proof that their opinion was correct, and are now acting as if it's some awful thing to sell Alejandro Garnacho. Things like that. It's all the same culture. It's all the same culture. Now it's some horrible thing that we're selling Garnacho. Like, seriously? Really? I don't even believe it. I think we just want to use something else to put it against Ruben Amorim. So now it'll be like, you don't need that to make a case against Ruben Amorim if you're a fan. You don't need that to make a case against how bad things are going. You don't need to add on to it and act like someone's done something horrible by letting Garnacho go. He did that himself. He did it himself. He did it himself. He did it himself, and it made it impossible to sell him for any more than what we got from him. There's nobody else that can do anything from it. He turned down moves. There was no ability to have competition. There was none of it. He did it himself. He brought it on himself. That's just the truth. He brought it on himself. You know, it's like, it just is what it is, man. He brought it on himself. The leaving United, the whole situation. He pushed it there. We'll talk about Garnacho in a minute. I just want to do this poll as everybody kind of gets in here so we can see what the thought process is. I want to know what people are thinking right now. And then, obviously, I'll talk about my information and everything. But yeah, look, I mean, players who want to leave, they leave. Players who want to go, they go. And good luck to them in that case. But it's not on United in this case. It's not. There are players that are entirely up to them. I'm surprised by this poll so far. And that's kind of what I thought. You know what I mean? It's like you had the majority of the noise yesterday after losing be about this. And it kind of goes to show that it is a minority of people. It is a minority of people who are feeling this way about the manager and about the situation. It's not the majority. But I think a lot of people would want you to believe it's the majority and shame you for it if you think differently. I don't care. But this is a pretty strong majority as well. And it's not even like I've sat there and been like, I haven't even been positive since I haven't even sat there and been positive since the thing. So I haven't influenced this. I haven't been sitting there going, oh yeah, you should stay, you should get more time. Yesterday I was very upset. Very upset. I think most people were. But I think there's a lot of people who revealed themselves to be waiting for the opportunity to jump at it, frankly. That's what I would say. That's my opinion on a matter. And then you know what? People are allowed to have their opinions. But I think some people bit too hard because they thought that he would go. And now they have to sit there. Now they have to sit there being revealed that they're going to sit there cheering against the coach actively. I've never done that. I did not want Ten Hag to be here at all. But you can go watch my videos from last year, my watch-alongs and everything from when he was there. I'm just as stressed when we're losing, just as bothered, just as irritated as I was yesterday, just as happy when we win. Just as much enjoying it when we were successful. You know? I'll never be in that camp. I'll never put myself there because United need to win games. That's the whole point. That's the most important thing. United need to win games. It was 80% in. I mean, look, that's a different community to mine. Obviously, the United Stan community is very different to mine. They have almost different views on almost everything. But it's obviously a big enough sample size because they have such a big community to say, yeah, if you're doing that, then if theirs is 80%, then that's probably what the number is. I just turned the sound back on for that because for some reason it's been muted for a while. Wharton possible, percentage of any midfielder incoming. We'll talk about it soon. We'll talk about Wharton and all of that too. But yeah, interesting poll numbers. I am a little bit surprised. About the response to this. It's a lot more positive than I thought it would be, frankly. But again, when I go back to my video from this morning, it's pretty much accurate. Based on the response that people have. The only people to blame are the players, as it should be. Then there's a couple negatives. Then about Ineos. Then the vibe. Then it's he could not be great. I support it. They won't fire him. They need to sign a goalkeeper and midfielder. It would be a start to give him a keeper.
Club will know more and more who is grit and who is weak and needs to be let go. The surgery is not over.
100%, man. 100%, man. We've signed 3 senior players. The turnover, the full rebuild is not even close to done. Don't get it twisted, okay? Don't get it twisted. The rebuild at United, regardless of who's in charge, ain't even close to done. Then you've got sell Garnacho and whatever deals, get him a midfielder.
To those saying Amorim needs more support, what do you even mean? The fact he still has a job with that record, more support to be what? Mid-table?
Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll talk about that in a minute, and I will give you some straight info that people love to ignore, frankly, but I'm telling you for a fact this information, okay? But give me a minute on that. I'm just reading through some of the comments here. Then there's a negative. If I'm Amorim, I'm demanding a goalkeeper. This could be a copy of Ten Hag's situation, or it could be a master stroke, delaying the inevitable. The heads want to ask Amorim what went wrong. Do me a favor. Blah, blah, blah. In short, Ten Hag, Wilcox and Barada choice. Obvious it's the keeper. Is Amorim finished himself?
Continuing to back players who haven't been anything but mediocre is what got us here. The club has backed them over Jose, Ole, and Eric, which created a culture of mediocrity. Do something different once, back the manager.
Yeah, agreed. I don't care what a manager says in public about liking his keepers. If he liked his keepers, he wouldn't have dropped Onana for the first 2 games of the season. Need patience. Anyway, it's a mixed message, but it was at least 50% positive in response. Okay, at least 50% positive in response, and that's yeah, it was at least 50% positive in response, and I was surprised by that. And that's on Twitter, which tends to be about as reactive as it can get. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on the players. Continuing to back players of nothing but mediocre. I agree as well. The fact of the matter is that regardless of the manager, there's other things that have to happen. Regardless of the manager, there's full turnover that has to happen. There's that. The second aspect of it is, who do you even bring in, frankly, right? I can't understand why we start our rebuilds making ourselves hard to beat. I kind of disagree with that. I think it's kind of ironic. We've essentially made ourselves harder to beat, and you may not be able to see it. Defending is fine. We've conceded 4 goals in 3 games, and 3 of them are keeper errors. I mean, that's kind of the ironic part of it. Even when Amorim came in, one of the things that changed pretty quickly from Ten Hag was...
I know this whole build-out this season hasn't panned out, but anytime you introduce anyone into the team, they will need time to gel. Everyone chill.
Fair enough. I agree. It does take time for people to settle. They reduced the amount of chances we were conceding by like half. Even mid-season. It's one of the small things that did change. But yeah, if you're counting the goalkeeper as part of the defense, he is the fart of the defense. About as useful as a wet one. But if you're counting the goalkeeper as part of the defense, then yes, that's what needed to change. That's the biggest thing that needed to be fixed, is a goalkeeper. As a part of the defense, that's the biggest situation that is there, that is inexcusable to have not addressed at this point in time. Okay? It's inexcusable. Realistically, there's just no justification for that. That's the number one thing that I have as a problem with where we've gone so far. It is inexcusable that the keeper has not been changed, and I will also add to that, again, just going back and forth on some of the narratives and things like that. We've all been wrong on so many things, guys. However, Onana was a really, 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 really popular with a lot of the same people that are calling for Amorim's head today. Really popular. That he wasn't the problem, a lot of them were saying for quite a long time. Why not bring back De Gea, Hendo, Baleba news? I don't think either of them would. Henderson wouldn't come back, and De Gea certainly, I don't think that's the right choice there. Baleba, I don't think there's still any chance of that happening this summer, but selling a lot of money. Obert, welcome to the Pro Muppet. Thank you for that. Thank you. Welcome to the membership. Didn't I want him? Well, no, actually. You can go back to that time. I was pretty wary of us buying another keeper who was not the choice of the scouts and not the choice of the recruitment department. Maybe the one they wanted wouldn't have worked. But yeah, where they play for Garnacho joined Chelsea or Club World Cup champions. Congratulations on winning the made-up trophy and tournament that didn't exist 2 years ago. But there's two other lines in that: how they play, if they play. Okay, why don't we wait and see how he plays and if he plays? Cool. Let's see. Regardless, I wanted the other keeper, and I spent a long time watching him. But it doesn't matter. If I wanted him and he was bad, I will admit he was bad. But there's so many of the people that are the biggest critics that are that are quite quiet on Onana right now. Quite quiet on the whole situation. They say we need a new keeper, but quite quiet about that while asserting their expertise. And that's the thing, like I said, I just don't like this. I don't like this way that this is done. I don't like the way that this is approached. I don't like the way that this is looked at. I'm just not a fan of the overall discussion in the United community these ways, because it's so much about just being right, and it makes it so toxic, and it's so much about, it's shifted so far into preferring to be right to actually supporting the team. It's so crazy in that respect. It's gone so far in that direction. It's hard to it's hard to fathom, you know? To the point where you can genuinely see the near glee in many people's faces yesterday, in the way that they post and the way that they talked about United's loss, in the way that they were enjoying the loss. I just can't do that. I can't do that, and I don't think you can. I mean, you know, if you want to be that expert, cool. Go get a job in football at a club and do it. Go get a job in football at a club and do it, and be that guy. And make a life for yourself. I'm sorry why that's not reading out. From my experience in Sunday League, there's nothing that sucks the life out of a team as goalkeeping errors. I'm sure that that's true. I mean, frankly, it's like, hold on, let me try. I'm just trying to fix something real quick. I'm sure that that's true. I mean, how could it not be, you know? There we go. Let's see. This has been a half rebuild so far. You can see the lack of confidence that spreads. When they concede that goal and they all just turn around and walk like heads down, it's like, it's not inspiring. And I want to add one thing that I think gets glossed over about that keeper performance. That's even worse. That gets glossed over. And it was actually one of the biggest reasons we could perform well against Arsenal. The reason for that was Altay's distribution. Even though he was essentially to blame for the goal defensively, one of the reasons we were not under pressure that entire game against Arsenal was the kicking. He was actually finding teammates. Onana has done this for years. The basics. He puts you under pressure. People were talking about it before the game, and then it just like, you can gloss over it and say, well, he shouldn't have to make saves. You know what he should have to do is make passes. When they're going back and recycling the play, and then the press is beat, and all he has to do is chip it over to Dorgu, and he kicks it straight out of play 5 minutes in, and hands possession to the opposition team, that affects the confidence too. That affects the way that the team play too. It doesn't matter who you're playing against, you're giving the ball to them. And that puts you under undue pressure and unnecessary pressure. So it's not just making saves. It's passing the ball. It's actually passing to the teammate and not giving it to, you know, and then even then, whenever you go long, then it's like you're losing it as well, because you can't even kick the ball. Listen to me for a second, okay? Benjamin Šeško's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", right? He's big. I think their tallest player was 5'11". Onana could find him one time. I think he found him one time on a long ball. I think he managed to get to him once on a long ball. Yes, those things have an effect. Now, should you still be able to beat Grimsby? 100%. Of course you should be able to beat Grimsby. There's no excuse for not being able to beat Grimsby. But come on, man. Like, give me a break, okay? Give me a break. This has been a half rebuild so far. Anyone that's been at the club for more than 3 years has to go. We need leaders. For me, Bruno isn't. I think that's worth discussing as well.
Saw accounts saying United don't play to Onana's strengths, yet I watched Altai with the best distribution performance by a United GK in years versus Arsenal.
You're right, Alfred, and obviously you disagree with me and everybody and a lot of people here on plenty of things, but exactly, it's Onana. The inability to pass is not the system. It's nothing. That part of it is not the system.
Spoke about how
That's
much
Onana.
a dodgy keeper really affects a team. Can destroy everything as players, then double guess everything.
Yeah, exactly. 100% true. 100% true. Absolutely the case. Totally does. But yeah, look, it makes a massive difference when you can't do that. You should still be able to beat them, but the idea that the keeper isn't hugely influential in all of this is funny. You know, they are very now. Oh, I just see the news. Solskjaer has been sacked by Besiktas. You know, sorry to hear that for Solskjaer. Obviously, lovely guy, good dude, but hasn't worked out at Besiktas. Now, it's one of those things where, you know, again, I feel like this was something that was being used to score points against United when Ollie showed up there and won a few games, and less than a year later, he's gone, and they lost to Lausanne, an Ineos team in Switzerland. He definitely should not come back. That's not the answer. That's not the answer at all. And I'm sorry to hear it. Hopefully he gets another job in football, but I wouldn't say that that's been a successful run. Okay. It's just another thing that was used as point scoring when he arrived there and won some games, you know. Again, it's just something I really don't like. Let me stop waffling around a bit and give you the information on Ruben Amorim. I posted this in the Patreon at around 7 o'clock this morning in my time, and then I put the video out on Twitter around 10, the 2.5 minutes video or whatever it was. And essentially the view on this is that from their perspective, the primary thing that they're going to be looking for in terms of what are their aims for the season under Ruben Amorim is to get into Europe, right? That's the goal. And probably not Conference League, like Europa League or better is the aim that they have. So I think you're talking like 6th or 7th would be needed to be able to get into Europe. That's what their goal was. We're 2 league games into the season, one in which they felt our performance was very good, one that we got a point out of and they felt it was a mixed, okay? I think 6th place has 3 points right now. 2 more games from now, United could be at most 8 points off the top 6, which would be really bad for what it's worth. That would be very, very ugly. Or 2 games from now, United could be easily in the 5th, 6th, 7th position already and being fine to compete. If you base it off of the league position, there was no pressure after Fulham to say, oh, we're questioning the manager's job after Fulham, because we had 1 good performance, 1 okay performance, and it's the first 2 games of the season before the first even international break. It's 2 games into the year, okay? That's part of the, that's one of the factors. Now, obviously, that means that the league games become very important. You cannot lose and start to keep losing and find this big gap growing between, you cannot find this big gap that grows. You cannot go 3 weeks from now and be on 2 points or something like that and be already 8-10 points off of the position that you're aiming to be at the end of the season by mid-September, or end of September. That can't happen for sure. Because, of course, there's the end of season marks and there's the feeling of where you need to be in order to make sure that happens and all of that. But that is essentially the thing. There was zero discussion within the club, within the board, within the management after Fulham about the league performance as being a cause for concern. Not at all. Because, again, it was 2 games in, and they weren't particularly unhappy with it. You can have bumpy games in the beginning of the season when it comes to league performance. So no pressure there in terms of his job security. He wants to stay. They want him to stay, I should say. They intend to keep going with him. They intend to keep building this long-term project. It's about more than just winning games. There's obviously the other aspect of actually, turning around the squad, turning it over, changing some of the things that the other aspects and all of that, which fine, you still have to win games. That's why you have the target of getting back into Europe. If you want to have a debate about this discussion, which is that this record that keeps getting brought up, 7 of 29 Premier League games. Fine. You want to talk about that. Let's talk about it, okay? Let's talk about it. And I'm going to give you some information, and it's firsthand. It's firsthand information. I've said it before, to be fair, but maybe not very clearly. You can take it. Hold on one sec. You can take it and accept it, or you cannot. But it's the truth. You don't like it, fine. You don't agree with it, fine. I don't really care in that respect. Okay. Let me just find it so I can pull it up. Okay. And you can keep bringing up the record and doing all of that and saying, well, it's this record and it's this record and it's this record. And the fact of the matter is, they don't care about that. The record to them is meaningless simply because the record isn't real. Okay? And I will tell you this, I'm just finding the actual game log here, okay? All right. We failed to win. Let's see. What was it? Man United versus Sociedad. When was that? March. Okay, cool. Yep. From March, okay. From around here, when we had those injuries, okay? When we had those injuries during the international break. Do you guys remember that in February? We had 3 injuries. We suddenly lost a bunch of players. Ahmad, a few others went down. And we suddenly were losing players left and right. Okay. From this point on, and especially during this period, because what was this period? This was when we were playing in the Europa League knockouts. And there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight games without a victory. During this entire period,
Against
it was.
I need a reaction. We need to make them run for their money right from first minute. A convincing win needed. A scrappy 1-0 won't do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It needs to be very, very good. The reality is, and again, you can accept it or not. You can accept it or not. You don't have to. I don't care. That it was a conscious, defined, and notable decision to essentially say, we're going to focus on Europe, focus on not getting injured in the Premier League, rotate as much as needed just to have our players fit for Europe, and hope and tell players not to get injured. That's the truth. They don't even see those games as that particularly meaningful because, frankly, the goal, which is a kind of an ugly thing to say, which is why people don't want to accept it, and then they're going to bitch and moan about it too. Frankly, the goal was to win in those rounds in the Europa League, and those games at the weekend for them felt essentially meaningless because they didn't see a route to get into the top 6 at that point in time, which is the truth. And so it was like, all right, we can risk our Europa run extra by playing our strong team on the weekend, and they didn't have depth because they had Xerxes injured, Lissandro injured, Ahmad injured, I think Kabi injured. You had a lot of players injured during that period of time to where you could not play 2 games a week. You could not play 2 games a week. So it was one or the other. You can say the goal is to win every match. There's also the reality. You can't pick your strongest side for 2 games a week during those periods of time. You can't. So we can talk about the record. That's fine. You can do that. But then saying the ends didn't justify the means doesn't particularly make sense. We made the final into a one-off game. So in essence, that strategy to keep the players fresh for those Europa League knockouts did work. They lost in a final, in a one-off game. And that's pretty much it. You know? They don't view that as a particularly meaningful thing because they were forced, due to injuries and due to the lack of squad depth, to make a choice. They had to make a choice. Do we play our best team and really focus on the league, or do we focus on the Europa League? And the choice is made to focus on the Europa League. So, you know, it's like some of those things happen when you bring a manager in mid-season and then you don't have a squad that can play in multiple competitions and you don't have the depth and you don't have the players available. Sometimes those choices have to get made. That doesn't mean that's going to be acceptable. You know, the ends absolutely did justify the means. Let's say we got knocked out of Europa League and we finished 12th instead of 15th. Would you really feel better? Does that make it any different? Does that change what happened last season? If we lost against Lyon, or we lost against Sociedad, or we lost against whatever the other Spanish teams were, and then we won 2 or 3 more games in the Premier League, so we had a better percentage, does that make it better? No, you would be complaining about the same exact thing. You'd be complaining about the same exact thing. You'd be saying, oh, we got 12th and we got knocked out of the Europa League. It'd be the same exact problem. Spurs did do the same thing, and they finished 17th. They won in that one-off game. That sucks. We lost in that one-off game. The strategy was fair. We lost in that one-off game. That doesn't make it wrong. That doesn't make it the wrong decision. That doesn't make it the incorrect decision. There was no guarantees that you were going to win either way. There's no guarantees.
James, you're one of the few creators I truly respect. Fans are impatient, but I'm tired of the rinse-repeat narratives. 4-3-3, 3-4-3, 4-4-2. We flip-flop to find excuses when it's clear we need major fixes.
Thank you for that, Snyder. Appreciate you very much for the nice message and the donation. And I certainly agree with you in terms of
Amorim said,
all of that. We do need to turn it all over.
So you have to change something else. How can I back a manager now when he's thrown the towel clearly?
I don't know. That's for you to decide. I'm not going to tell you to back the manager. Obviously, the narrative will be that from his side is that he's very emotional. You know, very upset about it and worried that it's on him. Yeah, correct, Mark McKenna. Mourinho did the same thing in 2017. We wouldn't have been in the Champions League without him doing that. He threw the league away, or at that point in time, and we were like drawing and losing every game in order to win the Europa League. You know, and you can't guarantee you win a final. Like, that's the thing that's silly. Saying we lost, like, okay, you can't guarantee a strategy works. That doesn't mean you don't have to employ the strategy. That doesn't mean you don't have to do that. You know, that doesn't mean that, you know, you have to do that. But look, Snyder, I completely agree as well. We can talk about formations all day long and we'll see. But regardless, yeah, they don't view that record as that meaningful because they brought him in mid-season without a team. Guys, but Jose won it. So what? So what? That doesn't change the strategy. It doesn't change the way that the strategy played out. You can't see the future. You cannot see the future. It's really silly. Like, it's such a silly way to go about it. You can't predict the future. You set out a strategy to win. You set out a strategy that was decided to be the best strategy. That was it. Your caps lock's broken, and so are you. That's the strategy. You set out a strategy. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know. But you try. You try to figure out what is the right thing to do. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Those are different points. But regardless, what it doesn't change is the fact that they made the decision not to play as rough in the season itself. You know what I mean? They brought him in mid-season, and it forced him to make that choice. You know, it forced him to make that choice at that point in time, which is not on him. There's not a window. There's not a squad. It wasn't a team. He didn't have signings. He didn't have players. He had like 15 fit players and had to fill the bench with youth during a lot of those times. That's just the reality of the cards that were dealt. So
James,
he was forced
to
into
convince
that
people
choice.
that don't want to be convinced.
Yeah, thank you
Love
for that.
You,
Good point.
brother.
Good point. Good point. We was the last second miss kick.
It was the last second miss kick from losing in the semi under
Correct.
Jose.
Yeah, correct. People talk like that Europa run was really clean, but it wasn't. Either way, that's where we were at. So what are they judging it on is this season. What are they judging it on is this season. That's what they're judging it on. What is he doing this season? And on this season, it's been 2 games in the Premier League. Now, Grimsby itself is something that raised a lot of concern. You know what I mean? That's something that did raise a lot of concern with them. That's something that they had to think about, something that bothered them, something that, you know, was stood out as like a really strange situation, a really ugly situation. Because they basically, the idea was, all I can say is what I've heard. Some of it I'll have to speculate, which is that they wanted to speak with him about it to understand what went on, not to clarify, you know, to talk to him about whether they're going to sack him or not because they've decided to keep him, and they haven't decided. They've never changed
the
that.
Manager, Ole has no strategy. ETH abandoned his strategy. Ruben is too strict with his strategy. Kuna and Mbeumo dodging criticism today.
Right. Yes, I agreed there because I've done the same thing. That's why I'm not going to be hypocritical. I said I wanted Ten Hag to stick with a plan, and he didn't. I'm not going to tell Amorim to change it now because he hits some bumps in the road on it. Okay. But yeah. Well, I think Cunha and Mbeumo missing penalties can happen. I wouldn't give him too hard a time over that, but certainly there's some concerns there. But yeah, it's 2 games. It's 2 games into the season. They made that decision. Now Grimsby bothered them, and as I said, from the way that I heard it, the answer to it was, we want to know how things went so sideways in that game. Why did it look so bad? Why did it look like the players gave up? And what are you saying with the comments that came out, which were very rough, and to understand it? You know, and that's the question. And that's the question that they want to know. And that's why they want to talk to him about it. It's not about, you know, they want to know, has he given up on himself, for one? Certainly that's something they want to understand, but they haven't changed and given up on him. But yeah, it's also about asking the players too. It's not just him. It's like, what is going on with the players? What happened in that? How is that even possible? You know, because it isn't, much as anybody would want it to be, it isn't all about the manager when something like that happens. Yeah, I mean, Sir Alex had obviously more credit in the bank when losing to York City, so it's a little bit different. But that's kind of, those are the things they do want to know. What happened here? What went on that allowed these things to occur? What is it wrong in this dressing room? What is wrong in this team that people can be that bad in a game. Ask the players why they're getting played off the park by Grimsby. Exactly. Ask them how, you can go and lose the ball 13 times against just trying to dribble a fullback, like against a tier 4
Remember the
team.
Bodo game? He changed his system and we turned it around. I question why he hasn't done it since.
I don't particularly remember that one in terms of what he would have changed, for what it's worth. I'll have to think about that a little bit. Now, look, I've got some suggestions. I have some wonders. I have some things that I would think about. But, you can claim it's many other things. But, for example, I'm not giving him a hard time too much on this because I quite like Ahmad, and I think most of his time has been pretty good. And most of the time when he's played, it's been good. He's had a bit of a tough start to the season, and that's fair enough. But what are you doing flicking the ball up in the middle of the pitch and losing it multiple occasions and then not tracking back? How does that happen in a game? How do you do that? Why do you do that? How do you lose so much focus that can happen in a game? That mistakes like that can happen on the regular. Those are the questions you want to know, that he will want to know, and want to know how players are getting away with that. Because you've got players that have looked good against Premier League level defenders that look like, that they were the League 2 side, getting beat, and it's strange. So there's questions they want to know and that they want the answers for. That's what the reality is. They want the answers for what kind of went on, and in addition to that, if there's anything they can do about it. What if there are players who are genuinely throwing the team under the bus? There's that this is happening, that have a bad attitude, that are breeding more bad symptoms in the team. Because I'm sure that there are. Honestly, I'm sure that there are. So those are the questions they want to know. But obviously his position will be mostly judged by league form, and we're not there at this point in time. So that is what's happening with Amorim. I mean, if you were to lose against Burnley, I would guess he's going to quit.
Scalpel,
that's what I would say. Scalpel, please. Thank you, Marcus. I would say he's going to quit. If you were to lose against Burnley, I don't think he'd even get sacked, but I would suggest he would quit. Dowell gets away with so much considering he's been here 7 years. Well, I look at that and I look at some of the stories. Now, am I saying these stories are true? No, I don't want to give credence to these stories, because it's like copy paste. We lose some games. Oh, some of the squad are not convinced by the tactics. Okay, where are the mythical tactics? Okay, where are they? Seriously, where are these mythical tactics? I don't believe the stories, but I'm also like, what are these mythical tactics that seemingly will work for everybody? What are these mythical tactics? That they're all going to be okay with suddenly.
That aren't good enough.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's like, sure, because we've had 4 at the backs, and we've had 4-3-3s, and we've had 4-2-3-1s, and each copy paste the same story. Not disagreeing with tactics, and it's every season. Well, hold on a second. Cunha played in a 3 at the back. Lenny's played in a 3 at the back. Maguire's played in a 3 at the back. De Ligt's played in a 3 at the back. Dorgu's played at wing back and at right wing, and he's been very flexible. Most of them have. What do we got to do? Right, we got to play 4-4-3. We got to put an extra man on the field in order to get tactics that maybe seem to work for everybody. When are you going to find 11 players that have only ever played the same formation and they're comfortable with it? That's never going to happen. Right, it's 4-3-3. No, it's not. It's not. I'm sorry to say. Cunha comes from a 3-4-3 system. Who? So question is, I don't think these stories are real, but at the same time, if the stories were to be real, right, 3-4-3 isn't even the tactic. And exactly, that's true too. If these stories were to be real, that would, for me, and I'm pretty agnostic on it today, that would for me be my biggest argument in favor of keeping him.
Formation does not equal system, and equating them is an inherently flawed way to look at how a team plays football.
That's true too. Which is why switching to a 4 doesn't make a lick of difference.
The difference between Amorim and Alor's interviews showed me the manager wanted to win more than anything, and the players couldn't be bothered.
Well, that's part of it, I think, in terms of the way that he emotionally responded to it. He's devastated about not winning. Some of the players couldn't care less. I think they couldn't care less. And I think that is a bit of the difference between his reaction to the game and the players. Before we move on, I have to slightly advertise something, all right, that I just want to bring up. As you guys know, I do the watch-alongs. There'll be another one on Saturday. There'll be another one on Saturday. And watched yesterday. They're a lot of fun. There was hundreds of people in there yet last time. And there's a game that they've been building that's pretty cool. And it's essentially a fantasy game for the community to compete against each other over there. This is not a paid ad, actually. I'm just going over it because it's fun and it's enjoyable, and I use that platform for the watch-alongs for a reason. And this is not they came up with basically a fantasy game, and I kind of want to show you what it looks like. Essentially, prior to the game, and the first one will be Burnley, you essentially do like a one-game fantasy competition where you pick your 5 players based on certain rules, and you earn points, things like that. And during the game, there'll be like a live feed, and it'll be showing how many points are being earned and who's in first and who's this and who's that. And essentially, you pick your 5 players, and we all compete against each other as a community. You don't even have to be there to watch it. You don't actually have to be there to watch it. You could just sign up, and then you don't have to watch it. And you can just come back and see how you did. But it's like a week by week, essentially miniature fantasy competition. It's fun. We did it a few times at the end of last season. And one of the differences here is it's like it is a competition. It's 1-to-1. You can win money with it, to be clear. It's not gambling, but you can win money with it if you get in first, second, or third position. It's their own proprietary competition that's created over on Big Up that we can play together as a community. So it's just a fantasy team. So the link below to Big Up, where I do the watch-alongs, is where this is. And it will literally be in the feed while we're watching the game, showing like text call-outs of like points earned and who's in first and things like that. It's like you can enter for essentially what are called big bucks, but this is $3. Or you can actually get in for free, but you actually have to like mail something, and it's just sort of the legal rulings and things. So it's tends to be a lot easier to spend a little bit of money to get in. And then you win prizes, and it's not gambling. It's competition. It's fun. And yeah, if you win, you actually can win money. And last season we had a couple people win a kit and win some other things and all of that. And it's actually a lot of fun. Now, at the moment, this is only available for people who are in the UK or Spain at the moment. If you're in a different country, you just have to be located in UK or Spain, if you get what I'm saying, in order to play. If you're in a different country, well, you have to be located in the UK or Spain in order to play, and then you can feel free to play if you can locate yourself into one of those countries. But a lot of fun, and it's going to make the watch-alongs even better.
Bruno be a problem now? That seems to be a problem. Bruno is a power center in the team and could have high impact.
Good question. Let's go back to that. So I'll answer that you in 1 second. So this is just something to play and hang out. And like you say, you pick the players. They all have different prices, and you have this little budget, and that way you can pick your best team. So yeah, if you need to take a quick holiday to the UK or Spain in order to play, then do so. But we'll do it for every Premier League game probably moving forward, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. And of course, you could win a prize. But the biggest thing is, of course, the competition between us and the community. So come and hang out with me for that next time. You don't have to play, but come hang out in the Big Up and watch-alongs. They're always a lot of fun, and you can do this if you want. All right, let's go back. Let me answer that one, and then we'll move on to the next subject. So I'm sorry to say, but could Bruno be a problem? Onana Dalot seems to be a problem. Bruno's a power center team, could have a high impact. Well, this is my concern, and I said this the other day. I worry in the way that there's this thread that hasn't changed for a long time, and I start to go, you know what? Maybe we should just I start to feel hopeless. And I was like, yesterday I felt hopeless, and I was like, whether it's the manager, whether it's not the manager, whether it's this or that, is there even a point? And I tweeted this in answer. I said, because you can just say, oh, we'll just go get this manager or that manager. Is it actually going to make a difference? I have no idea. Okay? I have genuinely no idea. But what I feel like at this point in time is that the only option we have, and maybe the best thing that we need to do, is simply continue turning over the squad until there's quite literally nobody left. And until there's nobody left from before, until there's nobody left from, the before times, from these tainted, terrible, times of the squad and the team and everything being run into the ground and, all of the things that have happened before, maybe we just start over. Okay? And that doesn't mean that it's one player's fault or anything like that. But I've said before, it's not about the root cause. It's not about that at all. There is trauma. Okay? One of the things that I think people don't get, okay, is that there's an interesting saying, which is like that hard times make tough people. No, they don't. Hard times make damaged people. When people suffer too much, when they go through trauma too much, when they have too many bad experiences for too long, they have a hard time pulling themselves out of it. If you're in a toxic relationship, here we go. If you're married to somebody for 5 years and they treat you like shit and you think it's good and then it's bad and it's good and it's bad and it's good and it's bad, and then they say, oh, you know what? I'm fixed. I'm fixed. I'm doing better. And it's all going to be okay moving forward from here. And even if they mean it, and even if they're right, and even if it's true, the damage is often done. And it's very, very hard to move beyond it. I mean, look at all of us. Okay? Look at what happens. Every year that goes on, we're less patient. Every year that we suck, we are less patient. We are more dramatic. We are more pissed off. We are more frustrated. We are more needing things to go, right away. And it doesn't make us better. It doesn't make us any better people. It doesn't make us any better fans. It makes us more unhappy. It makes us more toxic. It makes us more damaged. There's a lot of new people that have not been here that long. And yeah, we've struggled a little bit. But there's the guys that have watched us build and then get let down, and build and then get let down, and then build and then get let down. Imagine that. It happened to Pogba, and he became so disillusioned. It happened to Rashford, and he became so disillusioned. It happened to practically everybody, and it became so disillusioned. Okay? And they became disillusioned. I think Bruno Fernandes is disillusioned at United. I'll be honest. I'm not saying he's not a good guy. I'm not saying that he doesn't like the club. I'm not saying that he doesn't love the fans. I'm not saying that he doesn't get along with players. But it's not about anybody else. It's about him. I think he feels disillusioned at United. I think he feels beaten at United. And I think it shows up in his face at times. And I don't think that makes him a weak person. I don't think it makes him a bad leader. But I think he's disillusioned. And I think that there's many others like that. I think suddenly we move. There's a point where you just have to move on. And I have one big, massive complaint that I have that doesn't add up to me about the way that we're going forward and where I need to call out to me, the management and their decisions and Ruben Amorim is this. The whole message has been it's about the future. It's about starting fresh. It's about starting over. It's about going forward into a new United. Okay? It's about that. That's what it's about. If that's the case, why are we still playing Bruno and Casemiro together? Especially Casemiro, who's not going to be here next year, who we were trying to sell all summer. Why is that happening? Why didn't we get a keeper, and why is that happening? Those are the two things that they have to answer for that I don't think have been answered by Amorim and management, because they are antithetical to the idea that we are starting over and moving forward. Why aren't we focusing on the future? Why haven't we got a young midfielder in, even if it's not the perfect guy, to play with Kobbie Mainoo? Why? If Ugarte is not good enough, right? And if we don't have the right personnel, then why? Why haven't we done it? Why are we starting games like this? Because that tells me we're stuck in the past. That tells me we're stuck doing the same thing. And in each game, we're getting the same people doing the same thing. In that game against Fulham, that was trauma from Bruno. That was trauma. The same shit happened again that he's seen a million times, and you could see the same frustrations, the same panic, the same let-in go. You watch the first half against Grimsby, you could see it on the face of players that have been there, on Dallow, on Maguire, on this and that. When Onana lets a goal in and they go down and it's a disappointing game, they go... And it's like you can see the last 5 years in front of them. It's there. It's there. It's in front of them. It's staring them in the face, and they can't let it go, and it makes it so hard to address. You know, it makes it so hard to change, and it makes it so hard to move forward. And those are the decisions that to me don't rectify, because you end up in a situation where I feel as though you can't move on. You've got young players. You have an imbalance. You have young players, new players who are prepared to be a little bit patient, who know they need time to bed in. And let's just look at it from that example. You've got guys like Dorgu, needs time. You've got guys like Kobbie, needs time. You've got guys who are coming in, Šeško, and new players, Cunha and Mbumo, all of those guys that need time. And then you've got the guys that as soon as something goes wrong, they're broken because they've seen it so many times before, and then it's urgent, it's immediate. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't have the urgency on the pitch, but I'm talking about they're like, here we go again. They're immediately sucked into the past, and they can't handle the setbacks. The setbacks affect them. And that's what needs to be done. And yeah, I think that Arsenal is a good blueprint.
That made so much sense. We need to do anything to make sure Kunamumo and Sesko are not scarred in 2 years' time. Sign a GK and CDM Plaza.
Yeah, agreed. And I just think that that's kind of the point to me. And I do think Arsenal are a good example. They changed everyone. Not halfway, not a little bit, everyone to get through it. I remember that moment, and I actually think Granit Xhaka is a good player for Arsenal, by the way. In a similar way, you saw him go be successful, won a title for Leverkusen right after leaving, and was a very good, important player. Not saying he's Bruno, but I'm saying he was important. They moved, in the end, everyone that was there. Everybody. To turn it over. And I remember that toxic moment where Xhaka got like a red card and the fans were booing him and he was fighting with them and things like that and all of that. But fair enough. They still turned over everybody. At the end of the day. And have moved forward and don't have these issues kind of anymore. Now, Xhaka kind of turned around, but they replaced everybody else in that team, you know? And yeah, I agree. There's someone say there, it's not downing tools, it's the fear of failure. That's the point. They're so scared of failing that they fail. You cannot play in fear. You cannot work in fear. Fear is not a good thing. I'm sorry to say. This is my point about like when people are hurt or broken or all of that, that doesn't make them better when they've gone through trauma. Being afraid is not a good thing. It doesn't actually make people better. It doesn't. I'm sorry. It doesn't make people better. There's no healthy amount of fear. The healthiest, that's not fear. What people think is fear in that case, that's not fear. It's determination. Fear is not a good thing. And people are scared. When they go out there, they're scared. And the minute it happens, they're scared of the backlash, scared of being back in the same position. And that needs to change. And so that's the big question I have over the manager and over the management is why they've allowed that to happen. Why they've left it in that case. And it's not to say they all have to be gone from the squad instantly. They could be there a little longer. But they shouldn't be playing. They shouldn't be playing week in and week out. We should be seeing them play the people who are going to be here for the future. And that's it. Saka's the only one left. Yes, and he was very young. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you could have Kabi, you can have Ahmad, you can have these guys. I don't think they're damaged in the same way because they've never really failed. Kabi's never really failed. He's won a couple trophies with us. He's won a trophy with us. Like, they've never failed in that sense. But I think there's so much fear of failure at United. And it was like the Fulham game when I'm watching, when I did the tactical breakdown of what they're getting wrong. It was like Casemiro, Bruno, and some others were so scared to get it wrong that they couldn't just play with some freedom and some life. And that's an issue. Let's move on because it's already been an hour and I've just been on the first subject, but I promise the next ones won't be that quick. Garnacho, obviously now sold for 40 million, 10% sell on. That's good. Welcome Juan Martinez to the Pro Muppet. Thank you for that. That's good. United needed him gone. He didn't want to be here. There's plenty of other things, but there's plenty of other reasons why Garnacho should be gone. And it is only a good thing that he is. So I'm going to leave it at that and not get into it. But you need players who are committed, who want to be there. Now, the 40 million represents pure profit. And in this case, this means United should have essentially their entire summer covered from a PSR perspective. 200 million amortized. That means that it's basically entirely covered. JLo Hustle, welcome to the Pro Muppet as well. That makes a big difference to them. Financially, that's going to help the PSR quite a lot. And frankly, I think there should be the ability for United to spend if there's not the time. It doesn't say the sell-on's only on the profit. No, we're going to wait. We'll talk about it later. Do you think an Amorim formation change could help? No. I don't think it has anything to do with it, quite honestly. I don't think a formation change does anything for Amorim. I do have one idea that I would like to see him try because he has done it before. All right. This is he does not really change formation, but there are some different ideas and things that he could do that I think that he's done before that he was successful in at Sporting and I think could work that still align well with his system, with the way that he knows how to play, and that I think could actually work for the team. And may actually fit a little bit better. I would love to see him do it. One of the things that I found interesting is that we played better. Interestingly enough, we did play better. I wondered about this, and maybe once Šeško's fully up to speed, it'll be better. Maybe once we stop playing Bruno Casemiro every single week, it'll be better because we can actually get the midfield kind of going and all of that. But I thought, how do we get more attack on the pitch, but also maintain a bit more control? How do we kind of make that happen? How do we add some support, to the midfield if we're gonna to the middle of the pitch if we're gonna do what we're gonna do? And he's done things kind of like this plenty of times in the past. So I just want to show it here. This is what I would do because it's mostly similar to what we did with a couple different personnel choices against Arsenal that I actually thought was quite successful. And he did this a bit more directly with Paulinho when he first arrived at Sporting and won a title with it as well. Firstly, I think Joshua Zirkzee should be playing more. Joshua Zirkzee is somebody that offers you so much control on the ball, so much stability on the ball, something that everybody lacks. It was a breath of fresh air to see him yesterday, despite what happened, because, this gives you passing and control. It gives you runners off. He's done this before, for what it's worth, and it's kind of similar to how he had Mount and Mbeumo with Cunha dropping in and all of that. Zirkzee gives you a ton of control. I'm not saying that Mbeumo can't play or anything. You could play Mbeumo, you can sub Mount in here, you can do all of that anyways, fine. But this way, it all works. And there's a really neat trick here too, okay? Out of possession, what it allows you to do, all right? This is what it allows you to do out of possession, right? It's one little swing. This is it. It's just a tiny little swing. Everybody rotates like 10 yards, and you have a nice, solid 4-4-2 out of possession. Doesn't require a lot of lane changes. It doesn't require a lot of chaos in order to make this work. Zirkzee's a competent and good presser in a team as well. Up front, he's actually very, very good at it. He's very intelligent in the way that he presses. But anyway, it's actually that simple. You just do a tiny little adjustment out of possession to make it work. That gets you a faster player on the right, and Yoro has Maguire and De Ligt at center back, and Dorgu dropping back a little bit deeper, which he can do because he's very, very fit, and defensively you'd want him kind of dropping back. But he's done this before, and this is without changing his formation. This is without doing something different. This is his way of playing, and he's actually had, yes, he did play this in preseason on a couple of occasions, and he did play it even last year on a couple of occasions, and it's actually closer to the way that we looked against Arsenal, but it can still give you those runs from Šeško in there. Yeah, I know. He's done it before, so it's a small adjustment to the way that he's playing right now that might work until we have maybe better midfielders like Baleba, where you don't need quite as much support in the midfield or something like that. For now, I think giving you the technical security and the physical security of Joshua Zirkzee assisting in the midfield will give you a bit more help. Anyway, it's not even a change to his tactic. He's done it before. I think it's mostly personnel. I don't even think it's a tactical shift. I think it's just picking the right players. If you just pick the right players, that will be naturally happening. It's got enough attackers on the pitch and all that too. Just pick the right players. That's really the answer. I don't even think it's a tactical shift, frankly. You pick Zirkzee, he will drop into that position.
Frustrating thing for me is he has made tactical tweaks that have gotten him results or better performances, and then he reverts back. Big issue for me.
I hear you on that. My personal opinion is that the players dictate the tactic a bit more than that in the way that he plays. If you pick Zirkzee, Cunha, and Šeško as a front three, you will naturally end up with a midfield three. That's just what's going to happen, just so you know. Like, and if you pick Casemiro and Bruno, you're going to naturally end up with a midfield playing a certain way. There's nothing else they can do except play a certain way. They don't know how. And, so those are some of the things. Zirkzee, every time he plays, he does the same thing. If you even watched yesterday, where was he subbed on? I don't even know. But whenever he plays in the same role. And it's essentially supporting the midfield from the front line. It's just a personnel choice. Players will gravitate towards what they're good at, and all of that too. It's very attacking, but it's supporting, and I think it would help us a lot. And I think we would play better football that way. Rasmus Hojlund on his way, obviously, to Napoli. I think he's close to making. I think he's close. I think he's close to being done by all reports. Again, it's always a little funky because you keep kind of hearing that his people are pushing back on it, but at the same time, you're now hearing like it's in a few hours he's on his way. You're hearing reports from Italy that it's now agreed for a loan plus obligation and all of that. So this seems to be happening. Antony seems to be very, very close to moving to Betis, but these ones are like the next, here we goes. These two on loans plus obligations, they actually look like pretty decent deals based on the rumors or the reported fees at this point in time. Convert Xerxes into Jolington. Yes, essentially. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't read it out because I'm on the wrong thing.
Do you think Chelsea and Garner played United into accepting less than if he was open to move to the top bidder
100%.
instead of one club?
100%. The fact that he only wanted Chelsea is our main issue. We had inquiries and things that could have played up for higher, 50 million probably or plus from other clubs. But that's why I say it's whatever. It's on the player. He made that call. He did that. He wanted only that club, and that's what we got for it. So I'm happy with the price, though, in general. I don't think he's worth more than 40 million anyway, but we'll see. I think it's fine. But he did definitely, that cost us some money in that deal, him forcing the move there. By the way, now, before I move on to transfers, just the last bit to discuss what could be done here, I do want to mention, I suspect that one of the things that will be discussed is to analyze kind of what's gone on and what's happened from Arsenal, Fulham. Sometimes you know, during the international break, a lot of times what happens too is you get together, look at those few games, go through all of the data, look at what's worked, what didn't, where we were successful, where we weren't. It's hard to do that too much during the week, in a week to week, especially we had a midweek game. So it's like play Sunday, rest and repair, then you're just already getting ready for the next game and you don't have too much time to go through it. And then again, you're playing on Saturday, so you don't get much time to analyze the games. They do have very regular meetings over looking at it and all of that. And one of the things that I do know for sure that they do want and this is obvious, it's silly, is to meet and go over the, you know, obviously the analytics and the data behind what they've seen so far. And my hope is, when I look at the way that I just suggested for him to adjust, is that's part of it too. Is there anything we can support? And let's utilize our resources of, you know, Wilcox and the analysts and the data team to say, hey, should we make an adjustment
I've never been a
in the way we're approaching?
However, after yesterday, I did some research. Since 2021, the only midfielders we signed are Casemiro, Eriksen, Free, Mount and Ugarte. That is gross negligence.
Well, look, you are correct in that respect, and in that respect, I agree with you on it, because we've spent too little there over many, many years, and especially the timing of it has been bad. When we brought in Paul Pogba, we should have gone all in on the midfield at that point in time. We should have gone all in on the best possible, but what did we do? We bought older ones, we bought out-of-date players, we bought bad fits, we made stupid decisions that didn't let us build the midfield. And then when Ten Hag came in and we were supposed to go to De Jong, we did the same thing. We bought old players in Casemiro and Eriksen instead of buying the right types of players. So we've spent really badly, and we've never had an actual balance. And frankly, Eriksen and Mount were only pretty good at attackers. And this actually goes back long before that. Pogba's the best midfielder we've signed. And then we misprofiled him and played him as something different, okay? Because for whatever fucking reason, right? I'm not counting Bruno as a midfielder in the same sense. It's just different. We did silly things in that regard. It shouldn't be this dramatic in that case. Either way, even though I don't think the midfield in one sense is as important as some in this team, it's a bit... We're sabotaging it, I think, with the choices that we've made so far that are really, really bad. So anyway, my hope is during the break, they look at these things, analyze it, and say, hey, we're better going this way. And the biggest thing I hope that they change is the personnel changes. I don't want to see the same 11 that's going to revert to the same shit every single game. I want to see some changes in there, and I want to see something that adjusts the way that solves some of these problems by personnel. A tactical position, a tactical change is not going to make Bruno and Casemiro work. A tactical change is not going to make them work with Šeško and Cunha, because we're not going to even get the ball to them because of the way that it's being done with the personnel we're selecting. Okay, so that's my view on the matter on that front. I want to see serious changes to the way that the personnel are selected, and that there's a lot of talk about that. So we will see there. And obviously they want to make sure Ruben's head is still in it as well. No doubt about that. But regardless, Real Madrid have rejected an offer for Aurelien Tchouameni from an unnamed Premier League club. Anyway, interesting timing, if true. But yeah, on transfers, United still want to bring in Lammens, and they're still in talks with him right now. As I said, it's kind of frustrating. Galatasaray have slowed down the entire deal with bidding higher, with pushing on that, and trying to outbid, everybody and all of this stuff, and outbid us and to push that deal. That is slowing things down, but we cannot let this go. We have to go. We had talks on Tuesday. We're continuing talks right now, and we need to push this through. There's no excuse to not get Lammens in. We have to get this keeper done now. We were close. We've progressed it. It's not that expensive. We've just made sales. Just pay the money and get the keeper in. We have to have a keeper. We have to have a keeper. There's no point doing anything if we have a keeper. I don't care who you bring in. If you're Amorim in, if you're Amorim out, if you're Ollie in, if you're Ollie out, if you're, bring back Jose, or if you're bring in, Fabregas, I don't care who you are. We cannot continue without a keeper. They will sabotage whoever we've got at manager. You still have to have your keeper be able to make passes and make saves once in a while. Okay? So they can't let that go. And they're still talking today about that. So I still believe it'll get done. They're still feeling that it get done, but I'm getting a little bit nervous just because Galatasaray have been able to delay us on this deal quite a bit. They want to sign a midfielder. They do want to get a midfielder in, but how? This continues to be the problem. That's why I'm sitting here going, I'm not even going to necessarily say it can't happen. You know what I mean? I'm not even going to necessarily say it couldn't be true that we would bid for Tchouameni. I'm not even going to do that, because they might have to get creative here. They might have to get very creative here. Wharton is practically unobtainable at this point. Yeoman, I think I would take him. I like him. He's better than Casemiro. But according to the costs that are being stated, it's like 100 million euros for him. It's too much money, and I don't think that it's worth that. Now, I would be happy, but yeah, I would take him, and I would forget the money for a little bit because he would improve us, but I'm not sure that that's the right thing. But, and those aren't panic buys. I just want to be clear. The point is not panic buy. It's buy somebody you really like. It may be panic spending, but it's not necessarily a panic buy. All right. Panic buy is buying Antony when scouts say we don't like him. So, who can we get that we like, that we have liked? So that's why I'm talking about Tchouameni, and I'm like, could it be possible? Because we do like Tchouameni. We've been tracking him for like 5 fucking years. Could it be possible? Probably not. But regardless, I just don't know. I just don't know. Nobody knows if we can get something done here. There is the money to do it. At the same time, At the same time, panic buying what you do on crypto. At the same time, we do have potentially the money to go look at the January market. We do have the money to go look at the January market. Obviously, that doesn't solve our problems today, but it does. It is something we will be looking at. There's a willingness to approach the January market following these sales. Should we not get players in at this time to help us in the second half of the season to push for wherever our aims are and where we're at that time. So that's a good thing. I don't think we're going to be seeing any more like, oh yeah, we're not going to spend in January and all of that. Okay, I get it. I know. I understand the feeling of we won't make it to January. All that. Fine. I get it. I'm talking in general. Thinking has to be a bit more long term. In general, thinking does have to be looked at long term in general. And the fact is that I'm just saying, as a separate point of fact, that we are willing to enter the market in January and will be likely active in there to push us forward at that point in time. No, I know Tchouaméni's not going anywhere, all right? I know Tchouaméni's not going to be sold. I'm just saying that doesn't mean maybe we didn't try. I just need to put this up really quick so that before we end, enough people remember to click like on the stream. Appreciate it very much. So, yeah, January is only a few months away. But no, anyway, well, obviously the goal is to get something done now. But I just don't know that it's possible or who. We don't have a lot of time left. I mean, we've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday we'll be doing a deadline day yap session until the deadline. So, fuck. We'll see.
What are we saying, James? Iraola? McKenna? Carrick?
Amorim, because he's our manager and doesn't look like he's going anywhere. I will say this. I've changed my mind on some things, okay? I've changed my mind on some things. I don't think there's enough evidence to support hiring managers, hipster tactical managers, even good ones that I rate, from mid-table clubs and expecting that they're going to be the guys to take us to the top. I just don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that. Doesn't mean we don't, but I've seen this take going around recently, and I used to think that was the case. But then I looked at the truth of it, and I remember looking into this before Ten Hag arrived. And there are I think two. There were at the time.
WTF future problem?
There are on what? Glazers are thinking what on what? There are like two examples ever, by the way, of managers who haven't won in the league in top 5 leagues or European Cups coming in and being successful in the Premier League and creating a title-winning team. There's like two examples, and you know who they are, right? There's Pellegrini and there's Ranieri. So there's one in the instance of the greatest like unlikely story in history of Leicester winning the league. Amazing, don't get me wrong, but obviously they didn't build like a consistent title-winning side. It was a one-off insanity that happened. Most of the success in the Premier League has always obviously come from established winners, guys who've done things successfully at big clubs in other leagues. You know, Guardiola, Conte, Jose Mourinho, Klopp, like they've done things successfully at other leagues. They're winners with big personalities, and they've built big, and they helped build winning, consistent top teams. And that's like 95% of all title winners in the Premier League. Arne Slot, yes, but he didn't build Liverpool. Obviously, he jumped in off the back of Klopp. If we had a title-winning team, then I think you could maybe get away with that. I'm talking about who brought the team up to title winning. He took a team that had already won one title in 2 Champions Leagues with the same core and kind of jumped in on top of that. So I'm just saying in terms of what happened, in terms of the managers that have come in and done something kind of special at certain occasions and things like that too. But there's not that many. And I think we do need, if we were to make, if a manager change comes in the future, I do think we need a big personality with serious balls and a serious pedigree, like an Ancelotti or a Conte or something like that. I disagree with the idea that, there's very little evidence of finding a midfield or a mid-table coach that somehow magically scales up to winning a title. It hasn't happened yet. In fact, the closest manager to do it was Pochettino. The closest manager so far to do it was Pochettino. Technically, maybe Arteta now, but he's still won absolutely nothing. So he's no different to Pochettino to me in that respect. The way he built from Southampton to joining Spurs to making Spurs into close enough, but they didn't get over the line. They made a Champions League final and a Prem title, and they were pretty much a perennial Champions League team. That's the closest you got. And he's fallen off now these days. But I genuinely think we need and the pressure at Spurs was a lot lower too. That's part of the factor and what allowed that to happen as well. But I think people keep thinking we could get, and I've thought the same in my own instance, that we can get like some mid-table manager who's going to scale up and it's all going to work out great. But there's just no evidence of that. I think United are in a position to now, I think United are now in a position where we could handle a big manager, and we weren't before. We needed too much of them, and we didn't support them. Now I think we could handle a big manager, frankly, but I don't know. It is what it is. We're not going to change right now. I think Jose, like old Jose today, would once again be perfect, but that's not where we're at. And he's not the same guy as he was before. But regardless, Amorim is 95% going to be here after the break, and we're going to back him, hopefully get some players in, and see where we go and if we continue in this plan. But I've said my piece on everything on this. I'm not out in any kind of camp at this point in time. I just want to see us being successful. Your argument is that Ruben won't work since he hasn't won anything in top 5 leagues. Perhaps. Well, to a degree, I'm saying that I'm not saying every single guy who's won something is going to be successful, but I am saying that most of the people who've won things were successful elsewhere as well. We've seen that winning the Dutch league from Ten Hag hasn't done it. Amorim, TBD. But it hasn't been enough to take someone, all of that. So anyway, we'll see. But I've said my piece on everything. Hopefully we win games. I'm not going to join in any camps, and I'm not going to do the drama. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you want Amorim to go or to stay or anything like that. I do have hope that there are things that will change. Obviously Saturday could very much dull or enhance or calm things down on Saturday. What happens against Burnley will certainly determine a bit more of the mood on that. But we will have to see. Hopefully we just support him in the market enough to do something. Hopefully we support him in the market enough here with the keeper at the absolute minimum, but hopefully more than that as well to build something. And hopefully they get together and figure out some solutions that could work, because I think there are better solutions in terms of personnel existing in the squad than the way that we are selecting things today. I think that we could be picking better teams that, even if there's faults in them and all of that, I think mentality-wise and focus-wise for the future will be moving forward. Okay? That's what I have. I appreciate you all for having a very more positive, or more, I guess, we're not being so fighting and combative and things like that today. I think it was very nice in general, even if we disagree on certain things. Yesterday was rough. Today, a bit better. If something goes wrong on Saturday, you know exactly what's going to happen. But regardless, let's see. Okay, guys? Appreciate you all again. Thank you. Let's hope in the next hours, because now we're going to be talking about news at any hours of the day, we get some news on Lammens, because they were having talks. We cannot throw this one away. We cannot not get a keeper. We just can't. So hopefully. All right, guys, I'll see you later. I'll see you tomorrow, and have a good one. Enjoy your evenings. Goodbye.